My name is Reeps One. I'm also known as Reeps 100. I'm a musician, director, and artist based in London. I came through the beatbox community, like I kind of rose up the ranks in battle culture and then transcended that into touring and writing productions and shows, like really thinking about, as an artist and as a virtuoso, how far can I push that solo element. Almost unexpectedly, the last like 5-6 years, my role as a director, like writing and collaborating with voice experts, voice-based technologies like engineers all around the world, emerged. So I love to write and compose and push the limits of voice in any way physically possible. And that's not just performance, it's ideas as well. I think it's a huge resource, and we're only just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible with new technologies. The first time I ever tried Dubler, with any new tool, that you have to keep a completely open mind. You don't know what to expect. I've spent 10 years trying to explore the transition from an idea to voice into visual systems, audio systems, and there's been some opportunities when it comes like voice to MIDI, but I've never tried anything real time. Immediately, I had more ideas than what my physical body could keep up with. That's why I wanted to pursue deep art, is I could feel a real sense of potential when it comes to live performance, when it comes to writing. Like for me, that's really what I follow, is that sense of, okay, maybe there could be something here that's like never happened before, or a combination of elements or skill sets that have never been combined. So whenever I work with things, like if I get that spark, that's what pushes me forward. And I 100% had that with Dubler, like within seconds. So the actual piece that I recorded, I wanted to think about the full spectrum of things that I've experienced using the tool and allude to some of the ideas that I think will come in the future. There's one mode which is just solo control, so elements of solo performance where it's literally just me and I have no accompaniment or anything. Then we have accompaniment and me actually following what is like a piece that I've written, and to perform almost like a vocal and percussive top line. So that allows me to start introducing like elements of production and other ideas, like fusing, like matching. And then a third element, which is just full scale production, because that's what I see. Like I see eventually me being in an arena having 20,000 lights, and I'm able to like really isolate and select like which ones I control, like with my voice. For this piece, I really thought about the whole like visual journey of it, and the actual different sections of the track. It's automated in a way that when I do certain sounds, it basically triggers the next like visual journey as much as like other like sounds and sound packs. I really wanted to think about not just like being a virtuoso, which I love, but this alluding to the potential on a production sense. The piece is like relatively like haunting, what I'd say is like a playful way, but the visuals are really bright and like strong. So being able to go through those different scenes, I think is again a way to just show the potential. The other dimension to it is the piece starts like quite close in and it looks like I'm at a home studio, which is how many people are probably using Dubler, right? But then as the piece progresses, you slowly get more and more of a reveal that I'm in a studio. And again, there's this growth. So this narrative of like, well, the ideas that we have at home, we never know where they're gonna go. And if we can have the most like creative lateral experimentation in that comfort zone, like the aim is that we end up pushing them as far as they can go. And I wanted that to be in the creative direction and the writing of the work. So the main features I'm using, of course, is the percussive triggering. I move through a few different like sound packs, instantly go from performance into solo non-Dubler performance into like the triggering of percussion. But then also I'm singing solo and then able to instantly go into like chord triggering. The movement between those two things as a kind of live opportunity and in the post-production is something I really wanted to like see how far I could push that. And then for the final section, there is this element of live performance, but I wanted to sit down and like write. Now I've performed and created in this new way. What can I add that's going to, yeah, be my musical and expressive like potential. Because what we do live isn't always what our like maximum potential is. In my opinion, I'm hitting all these different like nodes of what Dubler is, this kind of like cloud of possibilities. This isn't a tutorial. It's not there to be a technical look at these things. I wanted to take all these ideas and do something that is, for me, a genuine expression. The first real combination of my live performance and production in this way. I'm excited by all of the prospects and all the ideas that come with it. I do think maybe everyone is, who knows who's out there, but we're just scratching the surface of like what's possible with this. And a friend of mine calls me like vocal Neo when I'm using like Dubler, because you can jack into any system. And I kind of alluded to that in the piece. So one thing that is always so important is to have an amazing team. And I definitely did. Like for this, I take a lot of pride in seeking out talents. We had Charlie from Fuego Films, who's an amazing director, like videographer. Bertie Sampson and Nick, who's part of his team, who are part of Immersive.me, who are lighting designers and like incredible technicians, like large scale, like lighting and lighting design. Belinda Best, who is another lighting designer, and she was gaffer on set to make sure everything was basically being lit in a way that works for a video. We were able to kind of collaborate and come together to act out my creative direction vision, which was, I kind of designed everything and then sitting down with each of these individuals to think about, well, how does this all come together? Like that's one thing that I think is so important for any idea is to, as an artist, is to not stay in your box, think about how you can empathize and understand like all these other disciplines. And outside of Reeps One, I have my studio, R100, and all these people are part of my studio team as well. Yeah, it's spent a long time like finding these great minds. But I also want to say a thank you to Anita, who is a musician that helped really consult and think about, well, what are these chords and what are these melodies that are being like triggered in the performance. So yeah, blessed to have good people around me. And the space was It's Flashback, which is an amazing studio in South London. I guess when I say something like music at the speed of thought, it should have some explanation. It's not something that you hear every day. But I'm really fascinated by like composition and music, like the, whatever you want to call it, like IDM culture, like electronica, actually designing, composing like pieces that have this like ADD complexity, and the fact that when you listen to music like that, for me, it really, I'm ADD, and I feel like that constant flow of information is extremely nourishing, and it settles me. I've always wanted to write music in that way. And definitely when I perform, there are elements of that. But with just solo voice, like there's so much that you can do, but any kind of accompaniment is separate. Like you're an analog acoustic like entity. When I started using Dubler, for the first time ever, really, I was able to take that instancy of expression that I get through beatboxing or voice and have this like parallel system, like triggering any form of production. Before Dubler, like I produce, I perform, and I compose with voice. There were always two separate systems. And now for the first time, I'm able to have that music at the speed of thought that I get through my voice and through the way I perform, channeled straight into my production. And I think that's a workflow and a system that A, I've never had before, and B, I will continue to use for the rest of my like creative life. That's simply because these two mediums and these two disciplines don't normally have that like instancy of connection. And I think all musicians and artists out there, maybe they don't phrase it the way that I do, but that instancy of flow, like that's what we all look for. And we achieve that through our hands, through our feet. But there's something more profound when it comes to our voices. It's so close to our minds. And throughout the history of music and music theory, you see it. You see this deep, deep instancy to an idea, to voice, like to expression. Another thing to like think about is that when you see a lot of the world's greatest like soloists or virtuosos, whether they're like playing keys, playing strings. Very often they're mouthing what they're playing. So you have to kind of ask like, what's happening there? Like, why do you see that again and again? In a lot of like traditional music culture, say like in Indian drumming, like tabla, you actually speak and internalize the musical ideas before you touch a drum. So there's an idea there that across all disciplines and kind of musical expression and the history of musical expression, the voice has a really profound role, again, as that bridge. And I think that we often take that internalization and send it somewhere else to a different instrument or a different discipline, where now for the first time, you're able to take that instancy and apply it directly from voice into all these systems that I keep mentioning. We have to just take a minute and stop and think, well, why is the voice different? Like, what does it actually offer on a dexterity level, on a conceptual like ideation level? The world is all about like new creative opportunities, like technical opportunities. So if you find something new or you use a new tool, you might make something that's never happened before. And I think all of those ideas together is why I think there's something profound. And if you don't want to go that deep, it's just a different way of being creative. So the way Dubler's integrated into my workflow really comes down to not just audio, but like visual systems as well. The most powerful part of any project or creation is that first 5% of like ideation or thinking about something. That previously would be a step-based process, where now I feel like just because I'm able to cut out some of those middle processes, I'm able to write and lay down ideas, especially the function to be able to sing to chords. Because I'm able to do percussion and melody at the same time, I'm able to like lay down and produce in a way I just never could before. But I'm mostly excited about live performance opportunities. I think to go from solo virtuosic beatbox into like full-scale production is a really exciting opportunity. And I think there's some interesting challenges, like when it comes to the calibration, specifically also like how you train the sounds. That's a very interesting like new challenge, because you don't normally get trigger feedback. So learning how to like approach questions like, well, how do you sound check with Dubler, like in a live setting? Like, how do you train it in the most like optimal way? It's been a really interesting process, and mostly comes down to like really knowing my space, like really understanding like how the system is listening and being trained. Like, what is my data set? It's that combination of like writing, but I'm mostly excited about my ability to go from solo performance into like solo triggered production, like guest like sound packs, like collaborative like pieces in a way that is brand new to me. Yeah, I tried a lot of different things when it comes to tools I'm using. What I settled on is Ableton with a DPA P48 and an Apollo twin. So, I mean, amazing sound card, and that as a in terms of like quality has really worked, especially now with Dubler 2, because I'm able to use my own microphone. What I couldn't do before, level of recording that allowed me to kind of go between like solo performance and immediately switch into like triggering. Now I'm able to do a full take, switch instantly between what is like a solo, like high quality, like vocal performance into triggering, especially in like the post-production of a live performance. It's kind of insane the amount of like doors that it opens up. I just really love the fact that I can do this performance, and not only do I have the choice of when to include my like live audio, but I can send the piece to another producer or another artist, and they're able to interpret and swap out sounds and like mix. It's just a freedom that I've never had before. Daily, I'm thinking about how to really like optimize that creativity. Flow of like toolkit is really, really strong for me at the moment, so I'm settled. One of the things that I had to like reconsider from the way I normally perform is that sometimes the like richest, loudest, deepest sound like isn't the most optimum sound to control the interface, like control the tool as much as possible. There are certain like small techniques which are percussively sometimes not very useful. So you can have things like, and that like percussively I don't use so much in live performance. But when I do that with Dubler, like the speed is completely insane. So the way that I would describe Dubler to someone that has never heard it before, if you've ever been interested in making music, like have you ever used your voice? Like have you thought about percussive, like melodic elements? And almost everyone at some point, whether they're a musician or not, has found a way of exploring music through like this tool. Dubler basically is a really incredible way to take what can be the smallest articulations or whatever time you've put into exploring music with your voice, and you're able to talk to almost any like system or technology in the world.